Lately, I've been reflecting on a childhood friend I hadn't seen in decades, but who I realized was so much a piece of who I am today that he never really left me. Some connections stay with us, and I feel connected, maybe you do too, when I consider that there's something bigger than just us. And the practices like prayer, meditation, expressing gratitude that can help us feel part of something more. These aren't just good for the soul. It turns out they may be good for our health too. And that's what we're exploring today. We experience 1,000 waking minutes on average every day. How are you spending yours? I'm Dr. Wendy Bazilian, and you're listening to 1,000 Waking Minutes. I can't wait to connect with you here with practical ways to eat well, move daily, and be healthy, to optimize every waking minute you live for a happier, healthier life. Thank you for sharing some of your waking minutes with me today. Let's get started.
I'm saying yes to better days, yes. I'm on my way, yes. It's gonna be okay, yeah.
Welcome to 1,000 Waking Minutes. I'm Dr. Wendy Bazilian, and I'm so glad you're here and joining me today. This episode is about connection, and not just the kind between people, but the kind that reaches beyond us. It asks us to slow down and look up, perhaps, or look inward, as some of us can do, or simply be still in the moment and feel that there's something more that seems to surround us if we give it even a little breath of space. So I've been thinking a lot lately about the friendships that help shape us, and really the type of friendships of earlier seasons of life, perhaps when we were still figuring ourselves out. Maybe you've had a friend like this too. A friend that showed up in your life, or maybe that you spent years with but haven't seen in recent times or in your adult life. But they were maybe friends who were steady or kind or real and authentic, and that become or have become, if you look back on it, part of who you are today. And even if you've lost touch, maybe after years, or in some cases after decades, and I have someone who comes to mind, someone that you feel like you are somehow connected with, the good ones, or that you wish for others to have friends like this, or even if you have children, that your children will experience friendships like this. So I'm not just thinking about sentimentality, but foundational friends that maybe help shape how you relate to others today, or how you show up for others, perhaps, or even how you love one another. Maybe that you hope your children can experience, as I mentioned. So maybe this is a space today, a pause where you can think of someone yourself as I am, and what sort of inspired this topic, this moment. So in talking about connection, I want to talk about sort of connection to the universe, to the mystery and the spirit of things, and specifically how it impacts our health and how we live our waking minutes over days and months and even decades. So today isn't about religion per se, but it can be, or about prayer, though it can be that too. It's not about any kind of doctrine or dogma, but it is about presence, maybe about reflection or wonder, one of my favorite words, as you may know by now, about gratitude. Maybe we can use the word spirituality. Maybe you connect with that word, maybe you don't. If it makes you prickle, that's okay. There's something else. But maybe what I'm trying to suggest is the spirit of connection, or things beyond those that are in our actual line of sight, or in a material form. When it comes to these kinds of memories, like where wonder and hope and personal wishes for ourselves, our family, our loved ones might live. That's what I mean. And how do we tap that? And what does that mean for our identity? But today we're talking about health. How do those pauses affect our health, our mind, the way we live in our minutes? So I'm going to call it connecting with the universe. You call it what you will, but today I'm talking about connecting with the universe in the ways that connect with you. So Elie Wiesel, the Nobel Peace Prize winner and the author of Night, if you've ever read that powerful book or read about him, but he wrote, if the only prayer you say throughout your life is thank you, then that will be enough. And I believe in that. It's a gesture, maybe. It's a feeling that's said with intentionality, honestly, from the heart. If the only prayer you say is thank you, that will be enough. So today we're going to talk a little bit about spirituality and health. No matter what your beliefs are, from being deeply religious perhaps or completely secular, science shows that we're healthier when we cultivate connection. And not just with people, but with something beyond ourselves. You might call it God or nature or chi, that kind of energy and flow. You may invoke something about the universe or love or oneness, as is often referenced in sort of the Eastern religions, or maybe science. The name really doesn't matter to me anyway, but the space for it does. So this isn't about rules and rituals, but about making space and thinking about places in your life where that may be present, places where you can breathe and appreciate and reflect where we are in this sort of vivid, beautiful world that is also sometimes heartbreaking, sometimes awe-inspiring, sometimes just so much bigger than ourselves and our humanity. So to remember a friend that maybe you haven't seen in a long time or feel a deep connection to, like you're right there. That's something that I can feel, and maybe you can too. And when we do this, I think we heal. And I think our focus sometimes can sharpen. We can go to places. Sometimes we soften. And maybe sometimes we even grow. So, what is the return on investment of this kind of connection for health? You know, I love to bring in some science or talk about the return on our benefits to our health from, doing or connecting in this way. The return on connection, maybe we'll call it, in research as in life. So, cultivating like gratitude or practicing prayer. These are two primary ways that people connect with broader universal presence. Saying thank you. And we've talked about gestures, simple gestures in previous episodes, or gestures of kindness outward. Saying thank you. It's not just good manners, really. That act has been shown to make people feel happier in research. So an expression or warm thanks or an expression of gratitude, it can sort of facilitate or bridge social interaction and relationships, and also like the perception of warmth between two individuals or more. Intentional gratitude, even when, something goes deeply awry, and the bad things in life happen. But intentional gratitude, expressing gratitude for the things in life that you that you have at the moment. It's been linked to lower blood pressure, in fact. It's been linked to improved immune function and even decreased stress, according to some research. So the role of gratitude alone is part of spiritual well-being, and has been shown in some research. And also prayer. And it doesn't need to be limited to the hands together, head bowed, or looking up kind of version. of prayer. Prayer can encompass thoughts or words, hopes, and it can come in many forms, from meditation to chanting to simple words or a nod to something beautiful that you pass and you acknowledge. That can be prayer. So let's talk about some of these returns. I want to share with you a few studies that I came across and returns on our connections with the other. So, number one, longevity. How about that? So, if we look to the blue zones, if you've heard about the blue zones before, there are certain areas in the world where people live at a higher rate beyond 100 years. So, there's more centenarians per capita. And researchers have sort of identified some key habits or key behaviors that these communities, some are in the Mediterranean region, like Sardinia and Greece, some are in Costa Rica, and the uniquely only one in the United States is in Loma Linda, California, where I did my doctoral work. But one of the common threads, and there's sort of 9 key attributes or behaviors that have been identified over time in the research. One of the key ones was not necessarily belonging to a specific religion, but belonging, period. So belonging to some either faith-based community, and the denomination didn't seem to matter. But showing up for something that creates meaning and connection does. So belonging. And here's the surprising part of that. People who attend sort of spiritual gatherings just 4 times a month, so roughly once a week, as is in some of the organized religions. But they may add, actually, according to the research that's been done, between 4 and 14 years to their life expectancy by showing up to a community that has a sense of spirituality or connection. Add between 4 and 14 years to their life. Is that incredible? Something as simple as showing up and belonging. That's a meaningful difference. And as it turns out, this type of connection can not just support your years, but also your mood. So I turn next to a study I want to share about emotional health. If we look at the famous Nurses' Health Study, maybe you've heard that before. It's a prospective study that's followed over 74,000 women for decades now. But research reported, after following over 16 years, that those who attended weekly religious services had significantly lower risk of developing depression, according to some research. So the Nurses' Health Study, the NHS study, it's a large scale, as I mentioned, long-term perspective cohort study, meaning they followed the same group of people over time to see what changes or outcomes or measurements showed up. And they surveyed them many times over the course of those years on their directly reported habits, from diet to exercise, and in this case, attending religious services. So what they found was a meaningful link between that regular spiritual connection and emotional well-being. Another study a few years back now, so in 2015, but I think it's relevant because it was a systematic review and meta-analysis of randomized control trials. It looked at spiritual and religious interventions, sort of like, think if you've ever heard people who start a prayer group for someone, or interventions, and they looked at the impact on anxiety and depressive symptoms. And the takeaway from this study was that the majority of studies, because this was a meta-analysis and review, showed reductions in both depressive symptoms and symptoms of anxiety. Of course, more research is needed on this area. Researchers are the first to say it, but the trend appears to be there. Meaningful connection seems to offer some real protection or risk reduction for our hearts, our mind, like anxiety and depressive symptoms. So longevity, mental health, and you might be curious about healing. Can connection or prayer heal? And I certainly know of friends and family, maybe you know some too, who've asked for prayer or called on prayers from others, or maybe you've offered it up, or even created prayer circles around friends or families going through hard times and health issues and illness. Maybe you've been on the receiving or maybe the giving end of this. Well, we've known for centuries that people often turn to prayer and ritual and quiet reflection in these type of times, especially in times of uncertainty, times of illness. And while we can't always measure it with the scientific method in a laboratory setting, we can use some of the tools of modern science now to look at and consider practices like mindfulness. So in a review that was published in a journal called Cancer Management and Research, they pulled together evidence on how mindfulness-based interventions affect people with cancer. And they found that these practices reduce psychological distress, improve sleep, and helped enhance overall quality of life. So this wasn't about curing cancer, keep that in mind, but it was about coping. It was about feeling better. It was about being more resilient in the face of challenge. And that matters, don't you think? I do, big time. And finally, for the ROIs today, the RO connection, ROCs, a recent study that really caught my eye and caught my attention recently about meditation, prayer, and doing nothing. So it was 3 arms. And what researchers called neurocognitive clarity. So when I hear clarity, when I hear neurocognitive, I get excited, but clarity, I'm in. Tell me more. So this is a 2024 study from Germany. It was conducted by researchers who did a study looking at cognitive benefits of spiritual practices in just a little more than 100 young adults. So this was young adults age 18 to 30. They divided the participants into 3 groups: regular meditation, regular meditators, regular prayer practitioners, and a control group that didn't do either of these. And they found something interesting. They found that both meditation and prayer improved mental clarity, concentration, and overall cognitive function. So meditation actually had a slightly stronger effect, but prayer still had significant benefits, especially when they were practiced consistently. So the longer someone has been practicing, the stronger those effects were. So that's important. This is one example about how these quiet moments, maybe taking some pauses for prayer or reflection or meditation, don't just nourish the spirit, as sometimes we hear. They can help sharpen the mind. They can soothe the nervous system. And they can help us think more clearly and feel more connected, perhaps. Overall, that's all talking about strengthening our capacity to live well, in every meaning of the word well. So whether it's about aging well and longevity or managing stress and anxiety, staying mentally sharp, I love that word clarity, or simply finding some peace in your day, it turns out that this kind of connection does really matter. So those are the ROIs. Now let's turn it into practice. But I would be remiss, of course, if I didn't offer us a moment to reset together in a mindful minute. That is a type of mini meditation. You call it whatever you want. I like to call it the mindful minute. And it's something we can do together right now. So in each episode that we have a thematic like this, we'll pause together for this time. Just one moment to breathe, to notice, to reconnect. And perhaps it's to yourself, the day, or maybe to something more. So you don't have to do this perfectly, by the way. There's no such thing as perfect when we take a moment for ourself in mindfulness. Let this just be like a pause, or maybe remembering a friend. Maybe it is a prayer for you, or some gratitude. Let's be in the moment. So we always start by sitting comfortably, our feet grounded, feel your toes in the ground. Be outdoors. I'm not outdoors right now, but if I were, I'd be sort of digging them into the grass. Let your hands rest gently. They can rest on your abdomen or just on your lap in front of you. And let your eyes soften or maybe even close. Let's do a preparatory breath together, in through your nose, out through your mouth. Allow your shoulders to drop. And let's begin. Maybe think of 2 words you could say, one on the inhale, one on the exhale that you repeat, like thank you. Thank you. Could be I hope, maybe be well. Notice your surroundings just by your senses. You don't need to fix anything right now. Just breathe and be here. One more inhale, be well. There we are. Sometimes that's all it takes. A breath, a pause, perhaps a quiet thank you. Thank you for sharing that mindful minute with me today. So when I was little, I met the poet John Neihardt. He was the author of Black Elk Speaks, a Native American, early American author, and he studied and wrote about black elk. And he studied and wrote poetry in the tradition of the Sioux tribe that he was studying. And he gave me one of his books. I was very young at the time. And inside the book, and he signed it to me, and I still have that book. And he signed it to me, to my name, with his name on it. And inside the book was a little piece of paper with a hand-typed poem. So separate from the book, it was tucked in. It was a little slip, and it was in the first few pages. And the poem is called The Child's Prayer. My parents turned it into a sort of like decoupage plaque also that was something that I put on my wall. And I would sort of quietly read it, probably almost daily, because it was sort of a part of, your space. You notice it, but you don't notice it sometimes. But I always loved it, especially because I was told, and I was young, under 5, I was told it had been written just for me. I believed it. And part of me still does believe it. I've never found it anywhere else. I believe it was written for me, and sometimes it's the belief, but it's really for all of us. So before we turn today's topic into a little bit of practice, I thought I would share that poem with you and see if it connects with you. I think it was great for children. I think it is great for children and all of us, including the big kids too. So here it is. The Child's Prayer by John G. Neihardt. Great Spirit, you are everywhere. You made the lovely earth and air. You made the creek that runs and sings, and everything with legs or wings. You made each blade of grass and tree, and all the little kids like me. So good is everything you made that we should never be afraid. Great Spirit, teach us what to do, so I can be as good as you. Great Spirit, this was. I love that, the Child's Prayer. Thank you for sharing that with me and indulging me in that. I hope that that connects with you. That poem still grounds me. And whatever your beliefs, I hope we can agree that our world is at its core good. And that sort of reminds me of that. We're lucky to have the opportunity to be here and live here. And I hope you enjoyed hearing that much, that poem, that beautiful poem, as much as I do, and as a reminder of just that fact. So if any part of this speaks to you today, connecting to the universe spiritually, through prayer, through religion, through hope, through silent moments or gratitude, I wanted to provide a few simple ways to bring it into our 1,000 waking minutes, or maybe reminders of ways that you're already doing that. So first, belong. Remember when I talked about the blue zones? Belong. We saw from the blue zones, we see from the Landmark Nurses Health Study, Women who attended faith-based services 4 times a month significantly extended their lives. The value is in the regularity and the meaning of weekly or even periodic services, connection. And it's a terrific way to practice. Maybe it's been a while, but maybe you make an effort to start again. You can go and do and participate. And if you don't connect with a religion per se, there are lots of ways to connect with like-minded others, like study groups and book clubs and social groups, other special interest groups. Some may argue that one is, more valid than another. I say they're all valid. Some way of belonging and connection. That's what I think the message is today. It might be a choir, community service. There's lots of examples that we could tap. Second, maybe try meditation. Meditation can take many forms, and it can be an effective way to gain introspection, to help balance your nervous system, and it can be something that you can practice regardless of any religious persuasion or feeling about spirituality. Overall, mindfulness can increase awareness of ourselves and the world around us, and of course, some of the mysteries of the universe. Another more practical, tactical way to connect is maybe in how you use your time. So, using transitions during your day as moments to pause, maybe taking a mindful minute. So, it might be between a meeting, one meeting and the next, or it might be when you're washing your hands. My daughter has a song that she sings while washing your hands. Maybe there's a poem or a thought or a gratitude that you practice. Maybe I'll try that. I think that might be my next thing to try in a transition for myself. Maybe before sending some emails, you take a pause, you take a moment, you say a prayer even, using the time and those transitions in that way. Another way is maybe borrowing or utilizing a prayer from somewhere that connects with you, or you can even make one up. You can pray, you can recite mantras. The act of prayer doesn't work, and I put that in quotes, for everyone, but most of us can benefit from thinking or saying positive words, certain sounds, certain phrases, affirmations, which you may have heard about, affirmations, and it may even evoke memories of some funny skits on SNL. The affirmations, they actually have been shown to really help. Positive affirmations, a few words of reflection, a few words of gratitude, have solid psychological and spiritual power and benefit. Each new year, I sort of set an intention each year. Sometimes I try to capture it in like an affirmation or a single word or something that I try to bring to the forefront. It may be something that's there, but I just want to bring a little more attention to it. So that becomes a way that I personally bring like an affirmation or an intention to mind and sort of use it in this way. We can create small rituals like taking a breath before a meal, maybe saying a prayer. We used to call it grace. Some people still do. A moment of silence or a quiet thought before sleep. Maybe you have a mealtime prayer or something poetic that you like to share. We have a few of those. One that we use sometimes that some dear friends of ours, Nancy and Tom, taught us, which is a simple sort of mealtime prayer that gives thanks and that also brings us fond memories along with when we share it. So thinking about creating a small ritual at mealtime, or maybe it's before bed. Doing a gratitude journal could be a way to invoke this connection, or saying prayers before bed, or giving hope for someone's health and healing, including your own. In the spirit of that also, another thing you can do is honor those that help shape you. So carrying on a memory, not just in thought, but in some kinds of practice. I always think of the Dia de los Muertos each year, the Day of the Dead, the celebration that has such deep ritual and meaning about honoring those who've come before us with offerings, ofrendas, and all the traditions that go with it in such a very clear ritual that is grounded in spirit and happiness. It's always so fascinating. So maybe there's grand practices and meaningful, impactful practices and rituals, but maybe it's something small, carrying out an activity in honor of someone, or saying a small prayer that reminds you of them, or just saying their name aloud. There are so many ways to honor our loved ones, our mentors, our family, our friends. And you can also let silence be like a prayer too. Sometimes you don't really have to speak it to feel it, and it can be internal and personal. So I have a number of others that I've collected over time that I've heard from you, from individuals I've been around who have shared with me, from volunteering to choosing to read positive media on purpose, to going to mindfulness retreats or Zen Buddhist retreats even. But I'm going to stop here for today on that. I hope that those give you a few little practices, and maybe you have some that you can share with me that you have done, and to bring attention to them again, knowing that there's such a beneficial part to our overall health, because we can just choose one. And let's be real with it, and let's connect in that way. So maybe today, I hope you'll find 1 minute, just one, to be still. Maybe offer a small prayer or a thank you or a moment of remembering. Maybe a way that you can feel more connected to yourself, to someone else. It might be someone who's near. It might be someone who's far, both in time and space, and to something greater, connecting to the universe. So I'm so thankful for your time to listen today and to connect in this way. Lately, I've been thinking, as I mentioned, more about all of this, that connection and meaning, and the ways that we take pause. And honestly, I was sparked from really thinking deeply about a friend from a long time ago that I'm so grateful to have had in my life for so many years, despite the time that had passed since I saw him. And I will think of him when I think of this episode of today and on a continued basis. We hadn't been in touch for a long time, which was something that pained me, but now I sort of see the beauty in that connection. And I'm so happy to have been able to share it a little bit with you today. So even across time in our spirit, we can be spiritual. Maybe you'll embrace that term a little bit more, maybe not, that's okay. But renew some of those things that connect to you, because I do think that we connect to something bigger. We have to. It's airwaves or sound waves, our humanness, something. There's some kind of waves that connect us. So maybe this conversation today can spark a little bit and be part of that too. If this episode felt useful to you or thought-provoking even, I'd be glad if you shared it with someone else who might enjoy it. I always appreciate if you care to leave a kind comment on your podcast platforms or wherever you tune in, or write me, because I really believe that our community and our efforts to be healthy and to be health inspired toward a well-lived life, that we're better together, that we support each other. You can always find the study references in the show notes, or write me, either way. And you can find me at wendybazilian.com. And I would be so happy if you join on Instagram at 1000 Waking Minutes. And this is 1000 Waking Minutes, our 1000 Waking Minutes. I'm Wendy Bazilian, and until next time, be well. Thank you for tuning in to 1000 Waking Minutes. A huge thank you to our amazing collaborators, including our production and marketing teams, and Gabriela Escalante in particular. To the ultra-talented Beza for my theme music, my lifelong friend and artist, Pearl Price Photography and Design, to Daniel Ballantyne, Jen Nguyen, Joanna Powell, and of course my family, and everyone working tirelessly behind the scenes. And to you, our valued listeners, I so appreciate your support. If you enjoyed today's episode, please consider leaving a comment, writing a review, and giving 1000 Waking Minutes, that's us, a 5-star rating. And please hit subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you enjoy your podcasts. Please follow and stay connected at wendybazilian.com. And don't forget to share with your friends. Your support helps us grow and bring you more great content. Until next time, find some simple opportunities to optimize those 1,000 waking minutes each day.
I'm saying yes